If your blood sugar looks decent in the morning but keeps creeping up over months, the problem is probably not breakfast. It is what happens after dinner, that quiet stretch when most people collapse onto the sofa, keep snacking, and tell themselves they will sort it out tomorrow. And here is what most people do not realize. In type 2 diabetes, the biggest glucose spike of the entire day often comes after the evening meal. Not breakfast, not lunch, dinner. And that repeated nightly spike quietly pushes insulin resistance in the wrong direction, month after month, without you even noticing. You may already recognize the pattern. Dinner was healthy enough. Then came tea, a biscuit, maybe toast, maybe fruit because it felt harmless. And before bed, you feel heavy, thirsty, tired, but somehow still hungry. Sound familiar? Stay with me, because the habit I am about to share costs nothing, takes 10 minutes, and in some people, it improves post-meal blood sugar from the very first evening. Not magic, not a cure, but fast, real, measurable change. And later I will explain why 10 minutes at the right time can actually beat a full 30 minutes done at the wrong time. I am Dr. Steve Collins, and I spend a lot of my professional life helping people understand why blood sugar problems are often far more reversible than they first appear. By the end of this, you will know the exact nightly habit I use myself, why it works biologically, and how to make it fit real life, even when real life is messy. Let me be honest, I do not think about this as exercise first. I think about it as cleanup. After dinner, I get up, put the kitchen straight, and then I walk. Not power walking, not heroic sweating, just a steady 10 to 15 minutes at a pace where I can still hold a conversation. Here is why that matters. Your muscles are like storage cupboards with doors that swing open when they contract. When you walk after a meal, those muscle cells start pulling glucose directly out of your bloodstream to use as fuel. Think of it like a sponge soaking up a spill before it spreads across the floor. And the timing is everything, because after dinner, that spill is often the biggest one of the day. In 2016, a randomized crossover study published in Diabetologia took adults with type 2 diabetes and split them into two groups. One group did a single 30-minute walk whenever they liked. The other group did 10 minutes after each main meal. The after-meal group won. Their post-meal glucose was lower, and the effect was strongest after the evening meal specifically. That matters, because evenings are when most of us sit the longest and eat the most starch. So here is your first action. Tomorrow evening, finish dinner, set a timer for 10 minutes, and walk. Inside the house, around the block, up and down a hallway. It does not matter, but not later. Not once the dishes are done and your motivation disappears. Right then. The timing is the whole point. Now, people assume the benefit comes from burning calories. That idea is far too small. Your body runs on biological rhythms. Nighttime is supposed to be the phase when insulin gradually quiets down and the system settles. When you eat dinner and then keep grazing all evening, you are forcing the pancreas to stay on shift long after it wanted to clock off. There was a randomized crossover trial in Diabetologia in 2022. Adults with type 2 diabetes who restricted eating to a 10-hour daytime window for just 3 weeks improved their 24-hour glucose control and spent more time in the healthy range, compared to people eating across 14 or more hours. 3 weeks, meaningful change. So the nightly habit is not just walking, it is walking and then closing the kitchen. Pick a cutoff time, 2 to 3 hours before bed, and make it boringly consistent. Herbal tea. Sparkling water, brush your teeth, lights off in the kitchen. A short walk lowers the immediate spike. Stopping the late night nibbling stops the second and third spike that undo the first win. Both matter, you need both. Some of you will be thinking, what if I already eat a decent dinner and my sugars still run high? Fair question. Insulin resistance is not just about what you eat. It is also about what your muscles do not do. I noticed this in myself on long desk days. If I sit for hours and then eat, my body feels sluggish in a way that is hard to describe unless you have felt it. The best way I can explain it is a traffic jam. Glucose is trying to leave the bloodstream and get into tissues, but the signals are slow, the roads are clogged, and everything backs up. When you take that gentle post-dinner walk, you create an alternate route. Muscle contractions can move glucose into cells through pathways that are less dependent on insulin. That is why a simple walk can work even when your metabolism feels stubborn. A 2023 systematic review and meta-analysis in sports medicine confirmed this. Postprandial exercise consistently reduced glucose spikes, with the strongest benefit seen in people with impaired glucose tolerance and type 2 diabetes, especially around evening meals. So tomorrow, do not wait for motivation. Link the walk to something automatic. Plates in the sink, shoes on, out the door. That is the whole system. Here is where most people quietly sabotage themselves. They do the walk, feel virtuous, then reward themselves with just a little something later on. You know the foods, crackers, cereal, toast, a handful of nuts that becomes 3 handfuls. Something sweet because they were good earlier. Late night snacking is where I see the story go wrong again and again. Why? Because at night your body handles glucose less efficiently than earlier in the day. The same food hits harder. And late eating tends to be mindless eating. You are tired, your decision-making is weaker, and portion sizes drift upward without you noticing. A 2025 randomized crossover trial in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism looked at adults with early type 2 diabetes, 6 weeks of time-restricted eating, improved beta cell function, insulin resistance, HbA1c, body weight, and waist size compared to standard eating patterns. Now, that study used a stricter fasting window than I would recommend for everyone. I am not telling you to copy it exactly, but the overnight break matters. The data is clear. So after your walk, make one simple rule. Calories are done for the day. If a craving hits, have a non-caloric drink and wait 20 minutes. Most of the time, the urge simply passes. Now I want to talk about something most people completely overlook: sleep. If I want better glucose the next morning, I protect the hours before bed like they actually matter. Because they do. What happens when you snack late, scroll late, and stay under bright light? You push your body into a half-alert state. Cortisol drifts, appetite signals misfire, sleep quality drops, and the next morning you wake up hungrier and more insulin resistant than you needed to be. It is like trying to run your kitchen after a power surge. Everything technically works, but not cleanly. A 2022 Diabetologia study found that people who were more physically active in the afternoon or evening had lower insulin resistance than those whose activity was spread evenly through the day. That fits the bigger picture perfectly. What you do at night changes the metabolic tone of the entire next day. So build a runway into sleep. Walk after dinner, dim the lights, stop eating, give yourself a wind down you can repeat. Even 5 calmer evenings in a row will teach you more about your own blood sugar than months of vague good intentions. I know what some of you are thinking right now. What if my knees hurt? What if the weather is bad? What if walking outside at night is not safe where I live? Then do not turn this into an all-or-nothing situation. The principle matters more than the format. March in place during the news. Tidy the house briskly. Use the stairs for 5 minutes. Pedal a small under-desk cycle. Loop your living room while listening to music. Does it look glamorous? Not even slightly. Does your metabolism care? Not really. Muscles are muscles. They contract, they pull glucose, and that helps. If you are finding this useful, please do hit the like button and subscribe. It genuinely changes how many people this reaches. And that is why I make these videos. The most effective version of any habit is the one you will still be doing 3 months from now. So reduce friction. Keep shoes by the door, put a coat near the stairs, tell your family, after dinner, I do my 10. Make it part of your identity, not a burst of motivation. Those never last. One important safety note, and please do not skip this part. If you take insulin or a sulfonylurea and you suddenly start walking after dinner and cutting the evening snacks, your readings may improve faster than you expect. That is a good thing, but it also means you need to pay attention. Check your glucose. Know your hypo symptoms. Do not change your medication doses without speaking to your clinician first. People hear natural habit and assume no caution needed. That is not how medicine works. The goal is to lower the spikes safely, not to be reckless. And here is something worth doing this week. Keep a simple note for 7 days. Dinner time, whether you walked, whether you snacked, and your glucose reading if you track it. Patterns become obvious surprisingly quickly once you start looking for them. Now let me answer the question sitting in the back of your mind. Can one nightly habit actually reverse type 2 diabetes? Honestly, the word reverse gets used far too loosely online. Some people do achieve remission, especially earlier in the disease, and especially when they lose weight, reduce liver and pancreatic fat, and keep blood sugar in range long enough for the system to recover. That is real. That happens. But no responsible doctor should tell you a 10-minute walk alone cures diabetes. That would be nonsense. What I will tell you is this: one nightly habit can become the lever that moves several things at once. It blunts the biggest glucose spike of the day. It cuts off late-night calories. It improves sleep. It makes fasting glucose look better over time. And it gives you an easy daily win that builds confidence. And confidence matters more than most people think. When someone sees better readings after dinner for 3 nights in a row, they start believing change is possible. And that belief tends to spill into breakfast, lunch, shopping, and portion sizes, which is actually quite remarkable for a 10-minute walk. So if your goal is remission, think of this habit as the doorway, not the whole house, but you cannot get inside without walking through it first. One more thing, and people get this wrong constantly: intensity. After dinner, I prefer gentle to moderate effort. You should be able to speak in full sentences throughout. Why? Because the goal is timing and consistency, not turning your evening into a punishment. Go too hard and you will hate it, skip it, or end up hungry afterward and eat back every benefit you created. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Directors Association found that postprandial walking after dinner lowered the glycemic effect of the meal better than exercise done before dinner in people with type 2 diabetes. Again, timing mattered, not intensity. Aim for easy enough to repeat, brisk enough to feel purposeful. 10 minutes is enough to start. 15 is great. 20 is fine if you enjoy it. And if you use a continuous glucose monitor, run your own experiment. Have the same dinner 2 evenings in a row. One night, sit afterward. The next night, walk for 10 to 15 minutes. Then compare the curves. That kind of direct feedback takes this out of theory and puts it inside your own body. There is nothing more motivating than that. The final piece is compassion. I mean that seriously. A lot of people with type 2 diabetes are carrying more shame than they ever admit. Every high reading feels like a failure. Every bad evening feels like weakness. Every craving feels like a character flaw. I do not see it that way. I see a body that has learned certain patterns, and patterns can be retrained. Slowly sometimes, but retrained. So if you miss a night, do not make it a referendum on your character. Just come back the next evening. If dinner ran late, walk for 5 minutes instead of 10. If you had dessert, still walk. If you are exhausted, at least close the kitchen and protect the overnight fast. The people who do best are not the people who are perfect. They are the people who resume quickly. That is true for medicine, exercise, sleep, and food. Everything. And when you stop treating this habit like a test and start treating it like care, it becomes far easier to repeat. So tonight, do something very unglamorous and very powerful. Eat dinner, stand up, walk, then let your body rest from food. That is it. That is the whole habit. Simple, yes. But simple is not the same as trivial. Thank you for spending this time with me. I genuinely hope this gave you something practical, not just another big promise. If it did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a calmer, more realistic approach to managing their blood sugar. I've done other videos on insulin resistance, sleep, fasting glucose, and the everyday habits that make remission more achievable, so have a browse around the channel when you are ready. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.